Number one, a lot of what research is based on in the fitness and wellness community, we know is male, keto, right? A lot of the research that we see in terms of fitness and wellness, the science behind it, is objectively patriarchal in nature. It's almost every study that we have is specifically from studying men only. And if you dive deeper into that concept, a lot of that male study is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male.
This is the online trainer show, trainer show, trainer show. This is the online trainer show.
We shouldn't have a podcast.
Maybe the problem is the book at the front of your bookshelf back there isn't the right one. Maybe it's you still haven't changed that and put one of mine in front to make sure that everybody can see it. I thought we talked about that last episode.
Not gonna happen, sir. Not gonna happen. Is that better?
No, but you're clear, so that's all that really matters. We can hear you.
All right. I am here. I survived a tornado, guys. I survived a tornado.
Yeah, but can we talk about something else? About how
about Barry?
About Barry.
Oh.
About how apartment rentals in Barry are now more expensive than Toronto. Like,
it is true.
Barry is like the second or third most expensive city in Canada to live in right now.
It is true.
What's up with that?
What's up with the lack of mayorship? Like, he's mayoring a city that's uninhabitable and too expensive.
No, well, the problem is this city is so fantastic that so many people from Toronto moved here over the pandemic. Once everybody started working from home, they were like, screw this, living in a high-rise situation. I want to buy a house, and Toronto's so expensive, so what's the next deal that is close enough? Oh, Barrie. So now, the cost of living, like the cost of houses, there's not enough housing. It's an entire housing crisis that we're going through now. Like, things.
It's a big problem.
Yes, it is a big problem. Like, it's an issue. So yes, there's a lot of buildings coming up.
Mayor, definitely a mayor with an urban planning background definitely shouldn't be the one to be in charge or have caused this crisis. Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, how dare he not foresee like a global pandemic doing this, right? Like what a lack of insight, right? How could he not predict a pandemic?
Well, here's the thing. No, it has nothing to do with prediction. I mean, this is the misconception. It has nothing to do with prediction. You know that you can't predict the future, but what you can do is you can prepare for unpredictable events. And this is actually a really, really important point that has nothing to do with whatever we're talking about, which I don't think we've even decided about yet. But it's such a falsity to believe that you can predict anything that's going to happen in the future, because there's just too much unpredictable. And anybody that believes that they know what's happening is either lying or disillusioned. Everybody who says that they knew what was happening in retrospect is either lying or disillusioned. Like they created a post-rational narrative and basically explained away something that just isn't the case. For example, if there's an ice cube that melts, and you just have a puddle of water, right? You would never be able to take a puddle of water and be able to tell what shape that ice cube was in.
Right.
That sounds like a weird example, but if you think about it, that's basically you trying to explain what happened in the past.
Like in hindsight.
And so, in hindsight, right? But we all believe that we can put the pieces together. This is what historians do. It's like, oh, this happened because this guy was assassinated, and so that set off this piece of events or whatever, right? It's like, well, not really, but you can prepare for unpredictable events and ensure yourself for them happening. And the way to do that is to make as many small asymmetric bets as you possibly can. Basically, mitigate against catastrophic losses. Make sure that you're never going to get taken out no matter what happens, and bet on as many small things as you possibly can that all have outsized outcomes. Basically, take every single meeting and every single opportunity. This is why network and relationships and reputation is so valuable, because they bring opportunities to you that wouldn't otherwise come to you. This is why potentially investing in your crazy friend's startup for a small amount of money is like not that bad of an idea. You know, because 9 out of 10 of them are going to fail because your friend's crazy, but one of them you could find out that your friend is a crazy genius. And I have a good example of this. I had one of the first people, his name was Lucas Pellin, that I mentored. He was like a mentee of mine, like officially. And he came to me after our engagement was over, and he basically said, he's like, I started a business with a friend of mine, and it's going really well, but we need a bunch of cash. Are you able, like, basically, can you give us like 25 grand? We'll give you equity. Like, we're early on, this thing's going to be huge. And I was just like, no, I mean, I'm not in a position to do anything like this. Long story short, this company's worth more than $1 billion. It's a company.
That's great.
So like my $25,000 would have been worth millions. Right.
Right.
And the company is called Sonder. You can look it up. Basically what they did is they're kind of like an Airbnb type thing, but they started buying up the summer, so students in Montreal had to buy 12-month leases. And the 4 months when they were not in school, these students had these leases where nobody was occupied for these apartments and things like that were in the best regions of Montreal during the high season of Montreal. And so what this company did is it basically paid for the 4 months from the students. They just had warehouses full of furniture and stuff like that. They completely remodeled them and turned them into luxury rentals for 4 months. And so they started like that, then they expanded to different college cities, then they started buying up buildings. And you can look them up.
That's amazing.
Like, that's like a good example of, I mean, you might have 10 or 20 crazy friends who are doing stuff like that. And it's better to just, make a small bet. Anyway, so long story short, no, the mayor could not have predicted a pandemic, but he should have prepared better for it.
Okay, here's another thing that he couldn't have been prepared for, and this is totally true. This legit happened, okay? So in the aftermath of the tornado, he's getting like tons of media requests from all over the place or whatever. And then he texts me and he's like, oh my God, guess who's interviewing me next? And I'm like, who? And he's like, this guy. Okay, and so here's the backstory. Some years ago, like a couple of years ago, I was in Toronto partying with some friends from the fitness industry. You probably know them too. And we go, like, it's a live band, it's a gig, we're there dancing, whatever. And then, I go grab my drink, and this super cute guy is all like, hey, hi, what's your name? And what's your Instagram? Like that, right? Whatever. He was really.
What's your name? What's your Instagram? Is that
yes. Like after the whole conversation of who are you here with? Oh, with friends. Oh, this is awesome. Oh, what's your Instagram?
What's your
like that,
Instagram?
Right? Yeah. So
I want to see what you look like, not in real life, on your Instagram. And I want to.
I look hotter on my Instagram. We've agreed on that. I look hotter on my Instagram than in real life.
Well, I told you about. I posted
the
on
shirt,
Facebook. It was the funniest thing.
Yes.
It's a shirt
totally
that I'm
true.
going to buy about 500 copies of, and I'm going to hand them out at fitness conferences. And the shirt just says, "You look fitter on Instagram."
Yes, it's totally legit. It's totally true. I can verify I look hotter on Instagram for sure, 100%. So anyway, so this guy, whatever, like over the next few months, and I actually went back and checked, like the last time that he messaged me was not that long ago. He was like, when are you coming to the city? Let's go out for dinner or whatever. I had no idea because I'm not familiar. One of my friends that was with us that night, he's like, do you know who that guy is? And I was like, no. And he's like,
George Stroumboulopoulos?
No, he's like, he's an anchor for one of the big channels here. Everybody here knows who he is. Everybody's watching you with this guy hitting on you, and you have no freaking idea who he is. And I'm like, I don't know who. I'm like, whatever. I'm like Shania Twain. That don't impress me much. So I'm like, whatever. Amber's clapping at it.
So was he trying to?
I am so proud of you that you know that song.
Was he?
It's totally true.
Was he trying to impress you by him having in Instagram? Like, is this what like dudes with blue check marks on their Instagram do? They just
I
like
have no
tell
idea.
girls to like connect with them on Instagram so they can be like,
I
yo,
don't
I'm a
know.
big deal on the internet.
Like maybe, but I don't know because I wasn't on my phone. He was the one checking my Insta. I was like, just like, oh, follow me. Like, I'll find you later, whatever. Like, I was just not, right? But he was nice enough and he was really cute or whatever. So he asked me out a bunch of times. I never went out with him or anything. And then Jeff, like with the tornado thing, he's like, I'm getting interviewed by the guy that's hitting on you. Like,
He should
I'm
have
like,
brought it
you're
up.
welcome.
He should have been right at the beginning of the interview on live TV. Jeff should have been like, "Oh hi,
By the way."
nice to meet you. By the way, have you seen a picture of my girlfriend?" And just held up a phone. Yo, that would have been amazing.
He could have done better than that. He could have done better. You know, we're safe. You know, the entire household is safe. Myself, Catalina Belmontes, are the children that we co-parent and live together with. We're all safe. So thanks so much for asking. I'd have been so passive aggressive about that. Yeah, we're all of the people that live in my house with me continually, including Catalina Belmontes, are safe here. So no need for you to worry, buddy. That's what I would say.
No need to check on her. No need to message her anymore, asking how she is.
Because as I understand, her whereabouts are a great deal of concern to you. So first, let me say that Catalina Belmonte is safe and in our common home right now. She's in the bedroom waiting for me to get back. You know, I know this is a news story you've been chasing for a long time. I'm gonna give you an exclusive here. She's safe in our home presently. Yeah, that's my take on it. By the way, where's Montreal? Like, I know it's in Quebec, but I mean, where in, like, if it was the United States, here's how I relate to Canada. Toronto is New York. Vancouver's Canada.
Vancouver's West. Here's what
Vancouver's,
you need to know
it's California.
Basically all of Quebec and how Canada views all of Quebec. Mm-hmm. Picture a map of Canada. Mm-hmm. To the right east of Ontario, there's basically a black hole in the map.
Okay.
And then we just continue on the other side of it.
Okay.
That's how we view Quebec. It's
All
kind of like this weird... it's kind of this weird thing that exists, but like they tried to separate and then they voted to stay. It was like a 51-49% vote
gotcha.
them to stay part of Canada like 20 years ago.
Montreal is your Texas. Yeah, you're absolutely. It's so Quebec is your Texas.
It's still French, right? Like most of Quebec is still very francophone. Montreal is very much bilingual and you can get by in English, but like most of Quebec is like very francophone. Like if you go there and you start speaking English, they will turn their nose up at you, my friend. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Try going up to Trois-Rivières and see what happens.
I don't know what you said there. I don't know what you said there. But it sounds very much like our
translates
Texas.
Loosely to Three Rivers. No, that's exactly what it means. Three Rivers.
Yeah. Shout out to Quebec and Texas.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. There's like, Quebec is the fact that Canada is still bilingual. Like Canada has 2 official languages. A lot of people don't know that. Every one of our labels has to have French and English. Everything official has to have French and English, which is funny because like 2% of the country speaks French, but it's just how we were colonized.
Pretty much.
Makes sense to me. I love it. Goofy is a cow, by the way.
Goofy's not a cow. Goofy is not a cow. I listened to that episode in the gym, and when you said that, I had to turn it off and turn on some music because it just wasn't that interesting of an episode because I wasn't on it. But also, Goofy is not a
cow. Maybe Goofy identifies as a cow. Did you consider that, Jonathan?
Maybe.
In your hasty, non-empathetic, demonstrative statements here, why don't you consider people's feelings first, Jonathan?
Goofy's gender pronoun, instead of saying he, him, she, her, they, it just says cow.
Cow, that's Goofy's gender pronoun. And I think that's fair. So, as of yet, we have no topic for this episode. If you haven't been able to determine that so far by the witty repartee and banter, are we deciding on a topic here? Something that's not boring, Jonathan, please feel free to speak. It
I'm
seems
looking
like
up,
you
well,
and
I'm looking up a female cow is I don't know how to pronounce it. Heifer, H-E-I.
it's a heifer. It's heifer.
I don't know
And a
either.
male
I'm
cow
like,
is
what
a
is this
bull.
word? Okay.
So how funny would it be if Goofy's gender pronoun in his like Instagram thing is like heifer-bull? It's like
Yeah,
he
heifer
identifies
bull.
as a cow.
Yeah. It's fluid.
But they don't identify as they're gender fluid cow.
A gender fluid cow, and that makes
Okay,
sense.
so let's talk about acceptance today then. What was that topic? I feel like the Goofy they gender fluid cow conversation translates nicely into
That's a perfect segue. Yes, why not?
led right into inclusivity. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
If you say so, Jonathan.
Yes.
I don't even know what Amber's doing, but I feel like she's taking a bullet out of her thigh or something. Like she's from the faces. Oh, okay, you're on the internet. All right. I thought you'd been shot in the quad and you were extracting the bullet with tweezers and some hydrogen peroxide, Amber, based on the faces that you were making.
No, I'm making faces at you all and some of the things that John have said. I'm not sure about the distinction between cow and bull.
Right.
Topic.
We may never know the distinction on this podcast. It won't happen before this episode is over. So if we're going to talk about inclusivity, if that's a word, the inclusive or lack thereof nature of social media is very interesting because I just did a Clubhouse room about this topic with a group of moderators.
Clubhouse still exists?
Yeah, it still exists. There's
That's
still
cool.
people over
That's
there.
neat.
That would trend into our other possible topic, Jonathan, which you said was disgustingly boring and not important in any way. So we're not going to go down that road, and I'm okay with that. At first the hurt was deep, but I've healed from that, and I'm moving on, Jonathan. I'll allow it today because I haven't washed. Inclusivity. This is a thing in the fitness and wellness space, right? Which is a microcosm of society, right? We see this challenge in general terms in life, in existence, in civilization, but it's probably more of a laser focus on it in the fitness and wellness space for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of what research is based on in the fitness and wellness community, we know is male, Keto, right? A lot of the research that we see in terms of fitness and wellness, the science behind it, is objectively patriarchal in nature. It's almost every study that we have is specifically from studying men only. And if you dive deeper into that concept, a lot of that male study is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male. Like there are very few indigenous, what we say BIPOC, black indigenous people of color. Very few of those studies have included that type of human. So we've got greater levels of depth of the opposite of inclusion, whatever that word is, I don't know, at every stage in the wellness industry. We can say the same thing financially in terms of certifications, in terms of representation in magazines, social media, ad campaigns. It's very monolithic in nature in terms of fitness. Now, obviously, in our own circles, I mean, right here, you've got a black guy and a Latina and a Jewish guy and a Caucasian woman from the South. In our organization, it's very well represented. And in the circles that we work in, whether it be Personal Training Development Center, Girls Going Strong, we work in organizations that are pretty well diversified across the board. But we are, would you say, Jonathan, our experiences are somewhat of an anomaly from what you see generally in the fitness and wellness space? You've been very specific, Jonathan, about learning and protecting the diversity of your organization. Can we start there? Why is diversity important in the area, in the context of the wellness industry, Jonathan? Let's just start there because you've done it. You've done things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm entering this conversation more as somebody who's interested in learning. So, I don't profess to be any kind of an expert. I am Jewish, but I also didn't grow up with any sort of, I was never treated differently because I was Jewish. I never experienced any real racial intolerance. grandparents did, my ancestors did for sure.
Right.
But I never did. I grew up in a reasonably affluent, accepting neighborhood with a lot of Jewish people. Not many black people, but a lot of Jewish people.
That makes sense.
Well, it's just interesting looking back because, I mean, one of my best friends in high school, his name is Chris Jackson, he's still a friend, was black. And I mean, I didn't think anything of it, but looking back, it's like, he was like one of 3 in our high school. I mean, really.
Right.
And
What a
I
different
cannot
experience.
Well, I cannot even imagine the experience that he had there, right? And I didn't even think of anything of it when I was in school. I mean, I didn't know, but looking back now, and I mean, the guy's super smart and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, to your point, it's a very yes, I take a lot of pride. I mean, our organization is very diverse, and that has been very much purposeful. It's not that we go out of our way and we say, we're going to hire black people.
Right.
It's
not what you told me, Jonathan.
Well, no, I mean, but we definitely go out of our way to make an effort to give a lot of people different opportunities. We also do a lot of blind type initial interview and application type processes. Malcolm Gladwell's most recent book, Talking to Strangers, makes a very convincing argument that no matter how good you think you are at judging things objectively, you're pretty shit at it.
Right.
And he gives an example of, I don't remember what orchestra it was. I think it was the New York Symphony Orchestra. Basically, had never had a female lead in the first 70 years of its operation. Mm-hmm. And they would argue, they're like, we have no problem with having female leads. There's just hasn't been, it's a meritocracy, there haven't been females coming. And then they started doing blind auditions where they could not see the person playing, and they actually chose. And all of a sudden, over 70% of the leads are now female.
Right.
And so, in an interview process, when you're hiring people, you have to be very careful. Particularly, I mean, most jobs, particularly in our organization, are not jobs where how well they come across in an interview is particularly relevant. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be really, really careful in how you assess somebody for a position, because oftentimes the conventional way to assess somebody for a position is completely irrelevant to their job. If you're going to be doing, art direction for us, I don't give a shit how you interview. Right? I care about how creative you are. I care about how much you understand the intersection between content and art and marketing. I care about how well you manage projects and budgets. Sure, you should be a nice enough person and get along with our team, but doesn't mean that, So anyway, but all of this having been said, when I used to host conferences, it was a real struggle to create a panel of diverse, and I'm talking different ethnicities, I'm talking, male, female, gay, straight. I mean, it was a real challenge to feature a diverse panel of presenters who were all who were accessible, right? Mm-hmm. And were all did a really good job. And it's a serious problem. And I'll tell you what the problem is. Generally in our industry, unfortunately, particularly females, just have not been given the same opportunities, and as a result are not as well practiced across the board in presenting. And that sucks. And so you should give them lots more opportunities to get practice, but if you're putting on an event, you have to juggle that with putting on a really good event. Right? And the fact of and so there's that issue. And then the other issue is that it can be hard to people who don't come across you've got to really search. So there was a big list by Elizabeth Vano that she published a while ago that was basically amazing females in the industry to go speak at your event, and that was a great list. Mm-hmm. But it was a big struggle anyway. So when this. I'm speaking too much because I really want to listen. I guess I'll just share one more thought, that this past year when the Black Lives Matter movement came out, particularly, it was, I never act rationally. I never put out nice sounding pithy statements for no reason without really thinking about it. And I've gotten some flack from that. because if you don't say anything, you're part of the problem, not part of the solution, and I buy into that. But I also buy into, I've got to really think about how I want to lead, we have a platform, we have people listening to us, looking to us for direction and leadership, and how I want to approach these things and talk about these things. And a lot of these organizations basically did what they had to do. They put out a really nice sounding statement that was done up by their PR department, and they put it on their site, and some of them still have it in their footer of their site, and it's like, Black Lives Matter, where we stand, and it's bullshit, and they've never followed it, and they still don't follow it, and it's just kind of there and sounds nice, and then they went back to business the exact same way.
Pretty much.
We took a look at it, and we said, well, I mean, we'll put out a little statement, and we did, but we were very late in putting out a statement. Like I said, we got some flack from it. But we really reassessed our systems because we recognized that our payment structure was perhaps less than optimal, and our hiring systems were perhaps less than optimal. And we really reassessed that. And it's not something that I go out of my way to say, like, this is where we stand, and we're doing a great job, and we stand for diversity. No, I believe in showing it. I believe in, we have a podcast here with a diverse panel of experiences and backgrounds. Like, that's on purpose, right? Look at our team. Go to the About page of the PTDC. It's not something that I don't think that it's something that you should. It's just something that, yes, a lot of the time, unfortunately, it does require a bigger effort to go do, but it's not something that you should be showing off that you're doing in some sort of weird virtue signaling type way. I guess that's kind of where I stand.
Keto, I'm coming to you. Let's go.
Yes,
Let's go. Let's get started. So I'll ask you a question first. So feel free to take this wherever you want to, because we talk about the term intersectionality, right? And there's so much intersectionality in your case specifically. Yes. You've got the socioeconomic intersectionality. You've got the immigrated to a different country intersectionality. You've got the woman intersectionality. You've got indigenous backgrounds. There's just so much there. If you could articulate, and then I love to get some questions from Jonathan as questions develop. I love to answer a lot of things here. But if you look at what you think, what's your top tier level challenges that you see in terms of the wellness industry? There are many, and it's hard to get down to 20, let alone get down to 1. But right now, what's the most pervasive, annoying part of what we do in terms of any one of those intersectionality pieces for you? From women's perspective, indigenous, immigrated, whatever. You just take this ride wherever you want it to go, young lady.
So, like, in terms of the fitness industry, like the circles that we all kind of like exist in, one of the most annoying things is that I am sick and tired of seeing the same people over and over and over again. Like, any kind of event that you go to, you are guaranteed at least one or two of the token men, because they're always men, who have been going on forever. Everybody has seen them, but it's like, but if you don't have one of them, then you don't have a big name to pull. And it's one of those kind of like vicious circles, as Jonathan is talking to, like when it comes to including women, it's almost like when you go, when you're a teenager and you want to go and get your first job, and they're like, but do you have experience? And you're like, well, no. Oh, then I can't hire you. Well, how am I supposed to gain experience if you don't freaking hire me? Who's going to be the first one to give me that opportunity? Who's going to be? And so that is what we need. We need for companies and gyms and business owners all across the board to be like those, I guess, those courageous enough to start giving those opportunities to women, to LGBTQI, to spirited folks, to, I don't know, any other kind of like minority, I guess, quote unquote, if you want to call it that. We need that courage from leaders into including, being purposeful about including the people who do not get the vast majority of opportunities. because that's how it starts, right? And I think and secondary to that, everything. For example, there's and I can't remember right now the name of the book, but I'll get it in time for the show notes. But there's tons of resources that show us, for example, the way that we teach nutrition. Like, as I was joking last time about this woman client of mine being like, oh my God, like rice is the worst. And I was like, as a Mexican, I have a thought or two, right? And it's even that, it's like recognizing that even the foods that we decide to demonize and the foods that we decide to tout as, superfoods and important and healthy, and this is how you eat and this is what your plate should look like. It's kind of rooted in white supremacy. And that's that big phrase that everybody's like, oh my God, don't say that thing because, you're turning away listeners right now. It's like, no, if you want to disconnect at having heard that phrase, then this is for you. You absolutely need to hear this because all of that, it's like, the ideal body types. It's rooted on a certain type of population. The ideal foods, that stems from a specific type of population. So how are we going to become inclusive is also by understanding that ethnical and traditional foods are everything can be just as, if not even more healthy than your broccoli and chicken meal. You know what I mean? And way more delicious, by the way. Add some flavor there, kids, because, that helps too.
So Caro, I'm going to be going down to Oaxaca. I cannot
my God.
Wait.
Oh, I'm jealous.
I cannot wait for the food down there.
That's
so for anybody listening, Oaxaca is, what is it, like the land of the 9 moles, like the land of the 9 flavors?
Yes.
And it's where chocolate originated, it's where coffee originated. What else? It's like,
I don't even know. It's an entire different world because it's even me being from the same country but from a different region, it's like an entirely different world experience. So yes, I'm very jealous right now.
Crazy. So can I interject and ask Carolina a question?
Yes.
On this? So how do we do that? Like, as somebody, I mean, like I said, I am not as good at this as I would like to be. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably in the same, like they get it, they get that it's important, they get that they want to be this way, right? How do I not just do that, but also, showcase it in my work? Like, what are some easy steps that I could take today, and what are some more long-term things so that I can, begin to get better for the future and not just short-term stuff?
Great. So I think, for example, as a coach, our first key is going to be like the very basic, keep things client-centered. Because you can't go wrong when you're client-centered. Like, if you have a client who's expressing to you how much they're gonna miss their traditional ethnic foods because now they're gonna start working with you and you're gonna put them on a diet, that's your clue right there. It's like, no, it's not about that. Tell me what's important to you. How do we incorporate this into your diet? And so you're being client-centered. You don't need to, suddenly become universally knowledgeable about every single ethnicity and like, that's just not reasonable, right? But if you are client-centered, you're winning because you're going to be honoring what matters to your client, and that is how you bring forward and include their background and their life experience and all of the things that matter to them. So I think that's probably like the best answer for that. Keep it client-centered.
So client-centered, particularly with different types of cuisines and that. Okay, that makes sense. I imagine you're talking about if you're coaching things like macros and...
Right. Yeah, like, for example, Indian people are going to have, there's a lot of lentils and you're over here worrying about the carbs. It's like maybe you park that for a bit and you find ways to incorporate, the stuff that they naturally eat in their diets and the way that they cook as a family and, and make it fit goals instead of trying to switch them into the broccoli and chicken kind of nutrition plan, right? Which is probably not the easiest change for somebody who's used to totally different
might
things.
not be possible. Like
Exactly.
they go to traditional family events or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like,
right.
and maybe a lot of diets are just vegetarian based, right? So that's another thing too. It's like, how are you going to become better versed, just as a nutrition coach in general, to teach people how to maintain their natural ways of eating while hitting their protein targets and hitting the right amounts of whatever else that you're targeting with them. So yes, that's just like on a whole, kind of like being a good coach, I guess. Like it's not, it doesn't have to be, rocket science, for lack of a better term. It's just keeping it client centered. It really does make a difference. And I think my last point, like with the fitness industry, is like, because Ren is asking me like, what kind of things are like super difficult or super annoying? And this is very real. And this is one of those intersectionalities that I experience, because I'm a woman, I'm an immigrant, English is my second language. I like socioeconomics, education based, because I don't have formal education. Guys, I don't know if you know this about me. I'm a freaking high school dropout. And I am fine with it, because I have done amazing shit in my life with not even high school finished. Like, so don't let that be a boundary, but at the same time, it's difficult when you are in front of people for whom they decide that it is a boundary. Like it's an obstacle. And I'm like, but I'm really freaking good. Like I know what I can do, right? So maybe also as industry leaders, park that. Because a person, what can they show you on paper? What have they been able to do? What have they contributed to? Because my ongoing education has all been, as we talked some episodes back, following my curiosity. And that's all, like I was garbage at school. If you ask me right now to go back into university or academics or whatever, just shoot me now. It's not a life for me, but that does not mean that I am not able to contribute intelligent, worthy conversations and value to the people that are listening. And so maybe stop writing people off just because they don't have the credential that you are looking for. There's so much more to life than that.
100%. I love what you said about the credentials. I also love what you said about the sort of the cultural cuisine, right? And how there's there's so much of what we encounter in wellness that's so Eurocentrically designed and expected to be the norm. And the subtlety in that is everywhere in life. If you look at, if you just look at two quick examples that are silly and one's rather frivolous, but just look at emojis, right? How long did we work with emojis before we saw emojis that had different color skin? It was just assumed. Right. It was just assumed that if you were black, a white thumbs up made sense for you. You're supposed to like it. It's normal. It's people in power deciding that they are normal and you're abnormal. Something a little bit more pervasive is you see in the United States. There is legislation here in the States to allow indigenous people's hair to grow the way that it grows out of their head and not be banned from being able to go to school or work. That's right. I'll almost use a bad word. I almost use the top bad word that you use. That's pretty ridiculous. That a senator or politician has to go to battle on behalf of their constituents to say that if Ren lets his hair grow out, you can't ban him from your job because that's the way it grows out of his head. So everything in fitness, again, is just a focusing in of that. You know what I mean? It's a microcosm of that. And there's so many levels to it. I don't think that we can get any greater depth today. But I think of a few things that I think of, Keto, on the list of things is the first thing I think of is who represents products in our industry, typically. And it's usually the same avatar. The second thing that I think of, which is really weird, is women who are in competition, fitness competition, who are indigenous in some way, and how they will all either straighten their hair or get a wig just so they can be accepted on the competition stage. The third thing that I think of is how indigenous women have a history of not being able to own their bodies, right? There's some colonization aspects to that where indigenous female bodies were subject to the pleasure of those colonizing them for centuries at a time, right? You know, you had no choice to say no to the advances of a colonizing entity, and how we still judge those indigenous female bodies today, because we're very, very, we objectify them on social media. So it's just a greater extension of not allowing them the power over their own body, right? There's levels involved in, BMI charts. What's considered healthy from a physique standpoint. We understand that a French person developed the formula for BMI in the 1800s, and it was based on Western European bodies. So now you've got an African American man going into a doctor's office who's 6'7", 268 pounds. The doctor looks at the BMI chart and says, your health is in danger. We need a medical intervention right away. Well, the foundational qualities of the chart were built on a totally different genome than this individual, and there's no consideration for that. So there are so many deep levels of inclusion that if you're not living in that body, in that community, you don't understand the consistent microaggressions that are aimed at you on an every second of your day basis just from scrolling your news feed. Your news feed, if you're a BIPOC person, is a series of digital microaggressions. And people don't really realize that because they don't have to be sensitive, nor should they be expected to be, but they don't have to be sensitive to those microaggressions that exist on an everyday, like every second basis. So much we could discuss here. I certainly, you guys may not know this out there, but I'm black. As a black guy, I certainly appreciate. I just want to clear the air with the listeners, the listenership.
We're gonna actually need you to prove that by slow jam.
Right. You see the type of microaggression that I experience here on a bi-weekly basis from Jonathan. When slow jam is sing that. You're so good at basketball. He never said that, by the way. And I am not good at basketball.
I feel like you and I would have a really, really good basketball game that would probably end somewhere around 0-0.
Right. we would definitely have a Euro Cup soccer score at the end of our basketball game. It'd be something like 2-0 or something like that. We'd have to pull out soccer terminology to score a basketball game between myself and by all means bring the goals down about a foot. To have a basketball game between myself and Jonathan, that'd be a thriller of all. We need to sanction that. Like that's good. Pay-per-view wants to see that, Jonathan. Jonathan Goodman versus Rincel Jones. We use my entire name in a racial basketball battle for the ages. It's Jewish versus African American.
When you get a short Jewish man and a short black man playing a game of basketball.
Right.
With Skilo, I wish I was a little bit taller, playing on repeat in the background. Right. What happened?
That's just good entertainment. I feel like this entire podcast episode should have been that exactly. But Catalina, I appreciate your thoroughness, your thoughtfulness in this context, and being willing to field a few questions and share your insights. And Jonathan, as always, your curiosity to genuinely get a better understanding of how the other person lives. Not because you care about people, but because you're intellectually curious. And we'll allow that. We know you don't really care, but this may end up in a book somewhere or something like that. And that's fine. That's fine. And Amber, as always, your pleasant demeanor as you watch the shit show that's unfolding before your eyes in the forms of the Online Trainer show. You just never know what's going to happen here. You
never know.
The beginning of this show and the ending are as polar opposites as I've ever seen in the context of my entire life. So
it's a mystery.
We took a lot of detours, but I'm grateful for the conversation. Jonathan, I would ask your permission that as we talked about off air, that we could continue this conversation, maybe with some extended panelists, and come into the conversation with those folks, from minute one of the show, and really, have our ducks in a row as maybe 3 topical ways that we like to express that. I think that'd be helpful for the listeners.
I will leave that in the 3 of you's capable hands to organize and pull off from start to finish. Once again, this is great. Find smart people to do great work and figure out a way to put your name on it. This is how it is done. From my perspective, it was more so like you were taking advantage of the black and the women. That's what I took from it. But whatever. Let's not go there. Let's not work.
We can go ahead and cut the show off now.
All that I need to say is let my people go. And let my people go.
Here we go with that again. Can't we get past that? So this has been a riveting, politically charged episode of the Online Trainer Show. CNN is already calling me for exclusive rights to this broadcast production, Jonathan. I'm looking forward to the next time, and I'm looking forward. What day is it? Is it Tuesday today? I'm looking forward to Thursday. Yeah, when we record something else that will make me forget about this entire recording. Can we jingle now? Jingle.
This is the Online Trainer Show. Trainer Show. Trainer Show. This is the Online Trainer Show.
We shouldn't have a podcast.